The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We're going to get to Orioles preview here in just a couple of minutes. Tim Federowicz, who is the Norfolk Tides manager, AAA team, will join us talk about what's going on down on the farm. The Orioles had a rough year, as you know. They are still 13 games under 500, despite the fact that they've won 4 straight. But they are not as bad as the Colorado Rockies. The Colorado Rockies have just ended a major league streak of 22 consecutive series losses dating back to last season. They've had 50 losses. They've actually won 2 in a row, and so they have 11 wins to go with their 50 losses. But there was a year, 2 years ago, the Orioles did not lose a series the entire year. So the Rockies finally broke out of this. They won their first 2 games against Miami. They're still 11-50, and they have a chance to sweep the series today. But the Rockies have been abysmal. Orioles struggling, but playing better lately, winning last night in Seattle 5-1 with a Colton Cowser home run. We're joined by the manager of the Norfolk Tides, Tim Federowicz. Do I pronounce that correctly? I want to make sure I got your name right. Is that correct?
It's Federowicz.
Federowicz. Glad I asked. And as you know, the natives pronounce it Norfolk. Is that correct?
That is right.
Okay, so we got that right. Federowicz, who is the Tim Federowicz, had a long career in the majors, playing for a variety of teams. And I want to start with this. We'll get to a little bit with what the team's doing as we do Orioles preview here on ESPN 630. You kind of walk an interesting line here. Your job is to win games as a minor league manager, as any manager at any level and any coach at every level. But you want to lose your best players, right? Isn't that the goal, to get your best players to the major league? So how do you kind of balance that in your mind?
Yeah, I think the most important thing, especially in the minor leagues, is just focusing on the development. I mean, winning is important. You want the players to kind of win and have that fight in them to want to win. But at the end of the day, you're just trying to develop them and get them up to the big leagues and hope they have success. So that's kind of our main goal.
Okay, and I mean, as you go into games, I mean, you have the goal that everybody who plays is out to win. Yet there are probably things that guys need to work on also at the minor league level. Is that, kind of, does it work kind of like spring training in that regard?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think all the work that you do to prepare for the game is kind of the development side. Once the game starts is where you kind of focus on the winning aspect, as a team, trying to find a way to win that game that day.
Mm-hmm.
You're going out as a pitcher, you're going out and attacking guys with your best stuff. I mean, there may be a pitch or two that you're working on in the bullpen, and you find spots to use it. Hitters are working on certain pitch types in the cage, and they hope you go out and execute their plan that day. There's a lot of stuff on the mental side that guys are working through, trying to figure out their approach at the plate, their approach on the mound. So just trying to help the guys through that and helping them realize what's going to be expected of them when they get to the big leagues. I'm
glad you mentioned the mental side, and I know you're discussing, what happens between the lines, but having spent time around minor league baseball many years ago, this is at the AA level, but you still have this, that guys are in their mid-20s, and they're wondering if their dream is ever going to happen. And do you have to play kind of like, older brother, dad, psychologist, kind of at the same time there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, baseball is such a mental game. It's taxing on these guys. You're playing every single day. You have the ups and the downs. You can have 4 hits one day and then go 4 strikeouts the next day, and just learning to deal with those swings and trying to just stay grounded on where you are and not worry about what tomorrow holds and just focus on the day, I think is probably the biggest message that I try to help these guys with.
Yeah, and I think also, too, these guys have come either out of high school or college, and they got families at home hey, when are you getting to the major leagues? When's your shot going to come? Is that something that you have to kind of work through with them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's pressures all over the place, There's parents that are hoping for the best and always wondering why you're doing good or why you're not doing good. You got friends at home calling every day, and then especially when you get to the big league, that's where it really starts to escalate. Just the amount of tickets that people are requesting, the amount of people that are reaching out and texting and calling every day. I mean, it's a mental grind.
Yeah, no question. Do you have a really? I know one of the great things that managers at your level get to do is to tell guys they're going to the show. Do you have a specific way of doing that? Do you play kind of fun games with them? How do you handle that?
Yeah, it depends on the guy. I mean, if it's their first time, you got to make it kind of memorable. Sometimes we'll have cameras in there. I know the media department likes when we have a video of when we're telling them. Sometimes I like to mess with the guys and try to act like they're in trouble, and then at the end of it, kind of bring home the good news. I've kind of used it all. I had it all used on me the amount of times I went up and down, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah. Do you have a story of a guy who didn't quite take it the right way?
No, I mean, most of the guys, I don't take it too bad. I don't get too bad with it.
Yeah.
It's mostly like just trying to tell them like they need to work harder, or they might have a couple of days down, and then tell them because you're going to the show and you're gonna be playing up there, stuff like that. So it's I don't try to get them. I don't try to keep the emotional swings too big.
Right. We're talking to Tim Federowicz. He's the manager of the Norfolk Tides. I don't know whether this is still the way things are done. But the impression I had when I was around minor league baseball is the real prospects were in Double-A. Once you got to Triple-A, they were players who may go up and down and help you a little bit. Is it still that way? Is still operate that way in baseball?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the organization and where they're at. I think Norfolk here a few years ago, had all the big-time prospects coming through at the same time. It's in some organizations, they're kind of earlier in the rebuild, and their players are at the younger levels. I think it kind of just depends on the organization and their philosophies. Some like to expose their players to AAA. Some like to make sure that they get a good amount of time in AA. I think AAA is an important level, especially as a hitter and a pitcher, because you're facing big league arms and big league hitters that are up and down. They have a solid approach. It's you prove that you can get success here, then it should translate into the big leagues. But it just depends organization.
Something that Mike Elias talked about, he said, with all the pitching injuries that we have these days, and I believe it's like 75% of the players that are on the IL on a regular basis in Major League Baseball are pitchers. So the pitchers that you're facing in AAA are not the major league level because they're already up at the major league level. Do you agree with that? Do you have any particular thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like I said, there's some guys, I think this is an important level for pitchers to come up and kind of face some big league hitters, guys that have been able to have success. We were just facing Lehigh Valley, and they have some really good arms, so it kind of just depends where you're at. If there are not a lot of injuries in the big leagues, you take a team like the Dodgers who have they have a lot of injuries now, but when all those guys get healthy, those other guys get bumped down to AAA, and those were just big league arms. So it just kind of depends on the situation that's going on in the big leagues. And if their big league rotation's healthy, then they probably have some pretty good arms in AAA.
Talking to Tim Federowicz, he's the manager of the Norfolk Tides, the Orioles AAA team. Since you came into baseball, coming out of North Carolina, there's been a shrinkage of the minor leagues, which would seem to mean more concentration of talent. Is that something you agree with? Do you think it's that way, or is it still kind of spread out?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a little less opportunity for guys just because you don't have the extra teams to be able to put guys on just to keep them around. I know there's regulations these days on how many players an organization can have in the minor leagues, and then draft time comes around. So sometimes you have to shrink it a little bit more as you bring in the new drafted players. So there's definitely less opportunity, but you're also seeing a lot more independent ball teams showing up, and there's still opportunity out there, just not an affiliated baseball. But yeah, the shrinkage definitely kind of took a little bit of opportunity from some guys.
But on the other hand, these guys are getting paid a little bit, aren't they? Haven't they up the pay a little bit for minor league baseball?
They have. I'm not. I don't know exactly the numbers, but I know that they are getting a little bit more, and I think that's great. They're getting compensated for their time. You're at the ballpark all day, every day. So
You're a catcher. It seems like there's a lot of catchers that become managers, and I guess that's because you see the whole field. You're kind of calling the game like a quarterback. Have you felt that your playing experience has been beneficial for you as a manager?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like even the times I was in the big leagues, I was usually on the bench as the backup. So, I spent a lot of time watching the game from that perspective, from this perspective, and you kind of just think through it. You're both a hitter and you're working with pitchers. You kind of work both sides. You're kind of the glue between the two. So you're trying to kind of keep the team's energy up. Everybody's looking at you for every single pitch. So it's important that you can really set the tone back there, and I think the really good catchers do that.
Before I let you go, how's your team this year?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing all right. We're trending in the right direction now. We had some struggles early. Obviously, the big league team had some injuries, but hopefully those guys can get back, and we can get some of the players back here as well.
Very good. Thanks, Tim. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Tim Federowicz, who is the manager of the Norfolk Tides, the AAA affiliate for the Baltimore Orioles, are now 23-36. They do have Colton Cowser back. He got hurt in the first week of the season, broke his thumb, comes off the 60-day injured list. They don't call it the DL anymore. Hit a home run last night, so big hopes for that. Tomoyaki Sugano, who pitched, off and on, first couple of months. Terrific last night, gave up only one run over 7 innings. The starting pitching has picked up recently for the Orioles, which is a good thing. They hope to get a good start out of Cade Povich tonight as he starts against Emerson Hancock as they play Game 2 of their series against Seattle. Coverage here begins at 9 o'clock for the 9:30 first pitch.